You and I live in a world, and it's so interesting because we're made in God's image. So there's a spiritual, pure, perfect child of God part of us. And let's say that that's the heavenly energy in us. Not heavenly as the cosmos, but divine, okay? Then there's this other part that thinks it's a person with stuff, with problems. I mean, you can't be divine and have issues. But we came up with a way to do it. Nobody else could do this. Nobody else could have screwed things up the way we have. We're so unique in an odd kind of a way. We've done the impossible, and the good news is it is impossible to ruin God's kingdom. Now humans go, in our thinking, sometimes we go, well, the universe, it's this battle of good and evil. That was never, I don't care if you're talking about the King Arthur Knights, or if you're talking about some Far Eastern tradition, North American, South America, this battle of good and evil. It's never been a battle between God and a devil. It's not like God's going, God, we almost lost that battle. There's nothing that can oppose God, not because God's stronger and bigger, because there is only good. But it's God. I said this in one of our weekly broadcasts somewhere this week, but it's God/good. Somebody added an O or subtracted an O. God is synonymous with good, true good. But then there's evil. Add a D, it's devil. Honestly, it's not God versus devil, it's good versus evil. But what is the evil that good fights? Evil comes from the word avail. So all that happens is that you can't destroy God's kingdom, but what you can do is put a veil over it so that you can't see God's kingdom. And that's evil. Not the action, but the aftermath. So there's pure God, and then we put up a veil and act like we're living in darkness, and that's painful. So now you have what seems to be, what is hell like? Oh, it's like constant pain. People are tortured. That's what it's like to put a veil between good and us. Lift the veil, or Arthurian mythology, pierce the veil, Percival, pierce the veil, and you see God again. How do you pierce the veil? Well, you take it by storm. No, you can't make it happen. What are you going to do? Fix God? It's a veil. Who put it there? We did. Who's going to remove it? We are. You can't even say, God, please remove the veil that we put there and believe in. God's going to say that would be taking away your beliefs. I will not strip away your will. I cannot and will not strip away your will. You were made in my perfect image. To strip something away makes you wrong. I would like you just to do the following. Like a 12-step program. God says, I would like you to realize how miserable you are without me, and then long to have me. And that is absolutely perfect. That is the perfect parenting style. Perfect parenting style. You can't just make your kids behave. It's important sometimes in parenting to tell stories of ourselves or lessons in life, give them metaphors, examples, so that they understand you have the right to choose this, but why would you want to? Why would you want to? It's kind of painful. When my kids asked about, when they were talking about when they were little and got to be teenagers, and I never said to them, don't ever date, don't ever do this. I just said, if you're going to, and it'll inevitably happen, I just pray that it'll be with someone you love. That's all. I can only hope for your best. You're still going to do what you want to do. I can model examples. I can try to alter this or, say this, but I can't force them to do or not do. So God, in this perfect parenting style with us, is basically refusing to make us good, make us be good. Instead, as Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, you have to become aware of how unhappy you are. That's called reaching bottom in a program. And I've always said, why does bottom have to be something you eventually reach? Why can't it be just today? Why can't you just go, yeah, I'm just going to call today miserable enough. I don't actually have to get worse. Why don't you let one hangover be enough instead of a DUI and losing your job and your partner? Why not just the effects of alcohol, the hangover? And people, humans, man, they're over the toilet bowl, they're always finding God. On their knees, and I'll never drink again. And once you're done, okay, that's probably it. I'm done throwing up, A call, hey, we're going out again tonight. I'm there, man. Where was your new life resolution? It's like 1 minute finding God, the next minute forgetting. So human beings, if it's not obvious, have an addiction. And it's not just drugs, alcohol, and so on, food and whatever. We're essentially addicted to not just the drinking food, this place. We're in an unhealthy addiction. We come to realize it's impossible for any person to live in the material world. We're spiritual beings, and yet, are we dense beings? Some of us say we're both. Here's the problem. You can't be both. You can try to be both, which is what we do, and guess what? It causes us problems. Because we have this spiritual calling, then we have these human compulsions, and this person standing right here, Michael, or you, any of us, this little space we take up is actually a collision between God's will and our own. When you hear in the scriptures, choose whom ye will serve, you have before you good and evil, God and, whatever you want to call it, light, dark, you have before you these, choose. It didn't say, so blend the two and have gray. It says, choose whom you will serve. Now, here's the downside to that. Religiously, we were taught, you need to choose, and it needs to only be God or else. Well, that's not actually choosing. That's make-believing. You're pretending to be religious. Choose whom you will serve is not like, you better choose. Choose means you get to. And I didn't choose very well today. Tomorrow I get to choose again. So tomorrow I go, yesterday I didn't choose to start my day with prayer. I'm going to do that. And then after I did, I go, wow, that's weird, because I was in the shower today and I actually was a little, just feeling like excited for the day. Like I was feeling motivated instead of showering, and still sleepy. It's like I feel ready. I wonder if that prayer might have helped. And then you realize I'm going to kind of sit with my meal and just hold presence for a moment instead of devouring your food. There's this, wow, setting aside these moments. Be with me, God. Calling in that presence. And what happens, prayer and things like affirmation, meditation, these things are actually curing the collision between spiritual energy and material energy. We're not cursing or making wrong material. Choose whom ye will serve means I get to choose the only real answer, which is that I am God's holy child, in whom, by the way, God is well pleased. Well, I don't feel like that. I mean, I've cussed 5 times, and I'm not even out of bed yet. I've already cussed 5 times. I needed a drink, had 3 cigarettes, and, I'm not even out of bed. Then judge yourself, and you're not any better. Instead, just be able to say, this is funny. I'm not even out of bed yet. I remember this guy, he was a student of mine in A Course in Miracles, and he was this lumberjack. Really, that's not like a joke. He was a lumberjack. He was a tree cutter and all, and in the Northwest, but he was from Jersey, and so he's like, hey, Michael, how you doing? And so I remember I did a visualization once. Okay, everybody, and picture you're moving, you're now drifting into a beautiful forest, and there's trees in the stream, and then you look down, and at your feet in the stream, there's a drinking cup of some kind. You reach into the stream and notice what kind of cup it is. Now I'm like, it's a chalice, and it's just a beautiful, dazzling, beautiful chalice, and it's got gemstones on it, and all of this. That's what I'm thinking, And the stream is crystal clear, and you drink from it. The greenery, oh my God, dense, lush. That's what I'm thinking. And so we're done, and I say, okay, everybody share it. Well, it was a clear-cut forest. All the trees were cut, and when you said reach for a chalice or a cup or whatever, mine was one of those cups that have poker cards on the side. You know, so this is the kind of guy he was. And I'm like, wow. Because this is also, it's a psychological test you can bring people through, and it reveals things. So he says to me, you know, I'm doing this Course in Miracles with you, and here's what happens for me now. When I wake up now, instead of just starting my day, every day I can hear my ego sitting on the headboard saying, it's about time you got up. We need to talk. I mean, this poor guy, that's his way of starting his day. That would be the opposite of what I'm trying to explain today. You're going to start your day and be able to laugh at it and go, God, that sounds like that guy that Michael was talking about. And it does, because you're starting your day somewhere. Are you getting up on the right side of your head? Like the right side of the bed? Are you getting up with God? And I'm not talking about 6 hours of Om and Mani Padme and chanting. I'm not talking about that. Seconds with God done with intention is worth what some people do for hours or days or years. Just truly, humbly. And remember, don't think of God as something vicious. Dear Jesus, I hope I'm okay. You get to talk to God. When Jesus told you to talk to God, he said, talk to that being that's like your own father, like Abba. Hey, Dad, guess what? Talk to it like it's close, it's real, it's approachable. So not to be afraid of God. So this concept, we are what we believe. And A Course in Miracles then has this line that says something, I'm paraphrasing slightly, you will believe that what you are, you will believe what you are based on where you are. So if you live in slums, you think you're poverty-stricken. If you live in bad relations, you think that's all you deserve. If you live in addiction, you think that's what you are. You're not an addict, it's what you do. It's not who you are, it's what you're doing. And so this gets tricky. We are what we believe, and then our environment confirms it. You and I already believed that we're off, that we separated from God. And all the outside world is doing is confirming it. So we deal with tragedy and difficulty and betrayals and so on, but it's actually mirroring what we already believe inside. So the outside doesn't make for who we are, but it adds to our beliefs like it's a confirmation. So human beings say, I would be better if only this were different, my relations and so on, because we believe what we perceive. But it's not true. You actually perceive what you already believed. But nobody's going to get that unless they know how to take responsibility. Humans love to say, well, I would have if only this would have been different. Because we think, again, we believe what we perceive. So if only my family were nicer and empowered me, I could have been something. No, you already didn't think you were anything, and they proved it. So what do you want to do with that? Oh, I'm just gonna stay in this misery, and that's not God's will. And that's the good news, is if we realize that God's on our side, then you realize I have all the power in the universe to change this. So call on that power. You're not begging for something. You're calling on something. God's like waiting for it. Yes, come on. I know you can do it. So there's nothing wrong other than we don't believe it. We have not yet learned to believe in what we deserve. And that's because of, the good old self-worth. I separated from God. I've been raised in shames and guilts. Naughty things were done to me. People have badmouthed me. My parents said I could never this, or my partner did that, and somebody betrayed me, and on and on. I mean, everything. Sexual preferences, I'm going to hell for that. Non-sexual preferences, I'm going to hell for that. Everything's just not looking really good. I mean, even if you just believe instead of heaven, hell, reincarnation, you're like, oh, this next one's not going to be very good at all. It can't go well. So, but these are all my beliefs, and what's behind them? Right here, who I believe I am, which tiptoes through the talks we've done the last few weeks. It's all based on who I believe I am. Now, when someone says that and you sit with that, you can close your eyes and go, okay, I believe I'm a good person. I believe, and now what I'm doing is I'm efforting to convince myself that I'm a nice person. little cards on your bathroom mirror, you know, I'm wonderful, you know. That is still you trying to convince. You're still using your head. It's better than the opposite and thinking negative things about yourself. I'm saying it still involves effort. There's another way. Ask God. Instead of, okay, I'm a good person. I am a good dad. I am a good... Stop and say, I don't know. I don't know. You show me who I really am and what I am. And then don't think it's going to come as a feeling. It might be subtle. It might be profound. But when a child of God releases their opinions of themselves, which is arrogant to have in the first place, you and I are actually programmed to believe that we're arrogant to say something nice about ourselves. And we're learning to understand you are absolutely arrogant to think that you're something other than God said you are. Who are you to decide that? Well, I mean, stop. You're wrong. I have a license of... No, you're wrong. I'm certified in wrong. But I have a lot of experience wrong. Several lifetimes wrong. Nothing you can say can be accurate if it isn't coming from God within. God speaking to us. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I just dissed humans completely. Nothing you can ever think without God is accurate. You're always wrong. That's a great empowering statement. Here's the good news in case you didn't get it. You've always been wrong. You can't think anything accurately. You can't speak the truth. You're always lying and you're always wrong. That'll give you a good day, right? I feel so empowered. This is good news. Because anything that you think you're thinking without God is wrong. Because you can't ever actually think without God. When you're trying to think without God, you're not plugged into anything real. It's your own conjurings. It doesn't matter if the conjurings are negative conjurings or positive conjurings. I'm a good person. Really? What makes you think so? Well, and you start giving evidence. Do you know that if God answered, you wouldn't need evidence? I am that I am. That's it. It's kind of nice. Well, because, you know, and this is kind of cool with parenting. No, you can't do that. Why? Who says, I am that I am? That'd be kind of cool with kids, right? Oh, whoa. Stay away from Dad, man. He's really in his center today. But instead, parents, you know, well, because I just don't think, you know, honey, and you're afraid of them being mad at you. That's not God. When people are plugged in, God, I remember like a story of a gal who I mean, there's so many that flood my mind right now, but in particular, a story of a gal who, she went down to a market to shop for some groceries. And at some point, she started seeing a guy was kind of looking at her strangely. She thought, I'm just going to leave the store. And she walked back up the roads to her house. When she got to her house, the guy was at her house. He followed her home. And as she was putting some things aside, she went to her front door and he was by her front door. She realized immediately, not only this isn't good, she realized his face is the one that's been in the papers. Yeah, the raping and murdering women in this region. And this is not good. And she realized, I'm in trouble. And so she started to cower and she started to get afraid and shrink back. And he starts walking towards her. And then in her mind, a quick, instant kind of a God, be with me, help me. And something in her switched. And she started looking at him like, what do you want? And immediately, there's this face, instead of fear of hers, he realizes she's speaking up. What do you want? So he's like, well, and he's now getting nervous. Well, I'll tell you what I want. I'm going to take control of this situation, whatever, you know. And she says, no, you're not. Well, I just told you I'm going to. Yeah, but you're not. And he starts getting confused. And within a matter of seconds to minutes, the whole role reversed. The whole role reversed. He started shrinking back. And she then says, now get lost. She walks by him to her front door because he's gotten in front of her door now. He actually shielded his face as she walked by him. That was not what he's been doing lately, and that's not what a typical victim would do. She found her center. I'm not saying it always goes perfectly like that, but it often does. A guy picked a girl up once who was hitchhiking and was giving her a ride, and it was very clear. I'm going up here. He drives a few blocks that direction, then he takes a different turn. She said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Just mind your own business. I have other plans for you." Well, no, but wait a minute. And he starts saying, "Yeah, this is great. She's scared, and I have her where I want her." And before you know it, she starts saying, "You know what? This is silly. You don't really want to do this." "Yes, I do." "No, you don't. You know, this is really not good, and this is going to come back on you." And she starts philosophizing with him. The end of that story, after he's taking these turns down these dark areas, you know, the end of that story is he got so upset, he brings her to her destination. He was crying and said, "Get out of the car. Look what you've done to me." Isn't that something? So you can handle your kids. If these people can handle that, you can handle your kids. You can handle people at work. You know, you can handle things. When somebody says, "You know, we don't think we're going to be able to give you that raise," when you know who you are, you can say things like, "Okay, if it didn't happen this week, I still know that it'll come around soon." Have a different belief in what you deserve. It is not arrogant for you to speak up and call on what, you know, this is what I'm going to choose in my life. It does get tricky because we are control freaks and narcissists. Very, you know, to a great degree. So there's a part of us that starts making demands, and that's not what I asked just now. The human part will start to overcompensate and make demands, thinking that's called empowered. If it's empowered, it comes from God, because God is the only real power. So we live in this life, and we're a collision. You know, when people say, "Man, you look like a wreck," you are. You're a collision of heavenly and earthly energies, not like yin yang, but literally the cosmic God divine trying to come through us, and the human that says the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. Bam, bam, at every second of every day you have that collision going on. No wonder glands shut down and organs fail, and because there's this collision. Because we don't know how to say, you have two things to choose, reality and illusion. Choose reality. You have two things to choose, God or manna, material world. God. Choose God so that this can gently continue on down through instead of crashing in the heart with the other energy. Breathe and practice drawing in this other option, God's presence. You're not shaming the material, because you're not going to call God in and then suddenly ascend. Calling God in means I'm going to change the way I live in my life and in this world. Okay? It's that you're in the world but not of the world. It's really amazing. I feel more at ease, I feel happier, but I also feel more guided. I don't just walk around going, "Oh, hello, namaste." You get stuff done. You know, but it's just so effective and efficient. You feel like you have insight. You're writing a book that used to take you 3 years to write, and it comes to you in days. You know, just something happens. Poems, you know, you have to work hard to figure out those poems, you know, rhymes, and all of a sudden it starts flowing. How to say whatever to your children. How to deal with mediating between two people. Things just come, just like I'm doing a talk. Things just come to us. It can be that way, but not just in one category. It can be that way on all areas of our life, in all areas of our life. It needs to be parenting and intimacy and workplace and whatever else. Our lives are supposed to be looking really grand. You know, we use Jesus as an extreme example, Buddha as an extreme example, Mother Teresa. That's their particular thing that they wanted to do. You don't have to go to Calcutta and work with lepers. You don't have to, you know, hang out with just a small band of people and walk around and try to be crucified at the end. You don't have to starve yourself to the extreme Buddha ever did. You don't have to stand up here like Michael does. Just ask for how it's supposed to be in you. And then you're living the Christ life. Put on the Christ mind. Put on the consciousness and allow, you know, God, just to imagine. Some of us don't like to think that we think negatively of God, that God's going to punish us and all. You might not want to believe that, but that's what happens in our subconscious. It's really there. But what about the opposite? Not only do we need to get over that God wants to punish us, what if it's true that God loves us? What if God actually does want to kind of take us home? What if it doesn't matter if you've messed up your life and your opinion of messing up your life? What if God says, yeah, so anyway, what? Well, I did this one thing. I smoked pot, but I didn't inhale. You know, and God says, well, you should have. No. Wouldn't have hurt you at all, man. You could have used it. Oh, my God. You know? I never did a lot of drugs and all those kinds of things. You know, it never really just did anything for me. But one time, oh, my God, I tried that. And it was the weirdest thing. I hope you don't mind this, but it was the weirdest thing at the beach with some friends, and they're doing this and, you know, smoking. And I'm like, wow, you know, so I tried this out. And a few minutes later, I swear to God, somebody said something funny. And I laughed. I went, and my head, I couldn't lift it back up. It fell back, and I'm like, oh, man, I can't lift my head up. I swear. And then I realized, oh, is this what people are doing? You know, and yeah. So it was so bizarre. And I thought, yeah, I don't want to do that too much. Because, you know, you have to go, okay, so I'm going to go home now. No. So it was never my thing, you know, really to do that. But it doesn't matter, because you might have said, well, I don't really care about, you know, smoking, about drinking. That's not a big deal, so I live with that pretty well. But there's this other thing I did. It doesn't matter which thing you think, you're going to have thought you did something. And even when you don't think you've done any overt hurtful actions, some people still think you did. Yeah. And you're going to carry that because you're a human, and you think that, you know, because we know the outside reflects the inside, right? We know the outside is a hologram that shows us our own stuff inside. So the problem with that story, that fact that the outside mirrors the inside, partly the way the ego uses that, it does this. And that means that if people don't like you, they're probably right. You should really consider that, other people's opinions of you. It uses the law, which is the outside is only a mirror, and convinces us that we should be concerned about that. And in fact, when people do say hurtful, harmful things to you, and they tempt you to, you know, stay stuck or hurt or wounded or whatever, belittling or whatever, just remember, you have a choice. Who will you serve today? Whose opinion do I want today? And ultimately, it should be, think to yourself, if not speaking it, think to yourself, thank God God doesn't agree with that. You're a terrible this, you're a terrible, you know. But that's not the way God created me. If you don't make a choice, you're making a choice. Get that? If you don't choose the righteous voice, then you're still allowing the other one, and that's a choice. You can't say, well, I'm just not going to choose either because I didn't know about this. You know now. And you can't say, well, I don't know which one. It's not my responsibility. It is your responsibility. Make a choice. So, of myself, I'm nothing. That means this material self. I choose to know me as God knows me. I screw up a little in parenting. Well, God, how would you have me improve that? God is not somewhere else. It's here. And it can and does speak to us. Honey, here's what I would like you to work on. So think of God as, that's why I recommend so often the book Jesus Calling. Because it's a way of hearing God or Christ or something talking to you like it's right next to you or within you, saying, here's how I would like you to consider your day today. When this happens, why don't you consider that? Like it's a good friend. People are too often so close to dysfunctional people. They should be questioning that instead of questioning whether they can talk to somebody who seems invisible. I mean, after all, God's invisible. At least my dysfunctional friends are right here with me. So part of what I'm getting to as we're going to come to a close soon is simply think in terms of God is as close as your own heart. If you want to hear divine messages, mind you, when you first hear, here comes that voice, maybe this is God, it often isn't God because you're not used to believing you can hear that. So you might still hear human chatter. It's like dreaming. When you sleep at night, most people's dreams are base level dreams, which is basically all kinds of bits of stuff surfacing during your dream state, like Freud said. But what Freud didn't understand is after you burn off the ego-based little bits and frustrations of the day, you can start getting deeper messages. He didn't believe in that, but that's what happens. You start getting deeper, more vivid, more lucid messages, and then eventually you start having revelations from God itself. It evolves to that. Don't try to push how fast it happens, but it does go through those stages. And it's like that on earth. If you're trying to hear God's guidance, a lot of times you're just going to hear chatter, and you're going to go, well, if that's as good as it gets. I mean, really? I said, God, what would you have me do today? And it said, order Domino's, and was that God? Well, maybe not. If Domino's is your favorite food, that might give you a hint. So you get past that stuff and you start listening and say to yourself, if it's God, it's going to sound loving. It's going to sound inspiring. It's going to sound healing. It's going to be something that seems clear, not convoluted. Like Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, God never meant this gift of tongues that different groups and religions practice. He said God would have never meant for people to speak in various tongues if they couldn't understand one another. The gift would have been to speak in a tongue that everybody could miraculously understand. Now, do you think he's just talking about language? How about behaviors, attitudes? So when you get guidance from God, it shouldn't be convoluted. It shouldn't be something you have to decipher. If you start to believe you're deserving in hearing clear, loving, inspiring, healing messages, then that's what you'll get. If it doesn't happen right away, keep telling yourself, but I know what I deserve, and I'm going to hang in there. I'm going to be tenacious with this. And you hang in there, and the messages will come differently. You might be surprised because it might come through you, affecting you, which is important. But it might continue after affecting a part of you, your head and your heart. And bless you over there. It might also then channel into a song or a poem or a message to somebody or whatever else it might be. So imagine the different world we're going to have when people make that their habit instead of the negatives their habit. Just imagine that. When people are sharing the good news of God. Instead of the drudgeries of life, what if people are meeting in the market? What was your miracle today? Oh, thank you for asking. The most cool thing, this wonderful thing. I didn't think this was possible, but. And then they're going, oh my God, that's amazing because I had something very similar. That should be the conversations. Like where we're all talking about how God has come to the world and is coming to the world again. Like some really glorious but positive form of a sci-fi movie. People are starting to have miracles and insights and visions and revelations, which is all predicted to have come anyway, down the road, revelation and people starting to shift and go through challenges in life and purgings and whatever. But eventually, a new heaven and earth, a new Jerusalem. But that can be right now. And instead of in a few selected mystics, it's for us all. God's children are only messed up because that's what they believe. They believe they've done wrong. They believe they've sinned in the Garden of Eden, metaphorically. They believe they've eaten from the bad fruit instead of the other fruit. I should have had that, but that wasn't organic enough. I ate from the sprayed pesticide tree instead of the organic one. It was clearly marked organic fruit, I ate from, it's not, just forgive. Eat from the tree of forgiveness. Get over yourself. And say, you know what, man, I have had so many opinions of myself. And don't be afraid of saying them. I'm going to make a list. I think I'm too this. I think I'm not enough that. Make a list. Knowing that you're going to burn it when you're done. Wow, look at the huge list of things that I think about myself. Some of them are great. I'm amazing, but that's still my opinions. Make your list. Positive traits, negative traits, make a list. And then burn them. But when you burn them with conscious intention. Today I am burning all of my opinions. And you can have another list too, what others think of you. Burn it. If you're ready to commit to it, to doing this, then burn it. And say, now I don't know. I don't know who I am. Show me, God. And it's scary because part of us are going, people are already thinking I've lost my mind. This is going to take it even further. My memory's already been challenged lately. This is going to take it even further. And so what? If God is with me, what could be against me? So we start to realize, God, this is just amazing. My life is changing. Everything's transitioning into, if I believe I'm God's child, wow, before I know it, my life starts to look like it. Why do you think ghosts hang around planet Earth? They think they're still on Earth because their habitat convinces them they're still here, even though they're in another dimension, but they still see signs of the material world. So you're going to go into spirit behavior consciousness. You're still going to see some of the garbage of this world. And then you're going to be tempted to believe, well, if I'm still in the material negative world, I must still be a negative, low person, like a ghost. But no, the ghost needs to say what? Go to the light. So tell yourself, do not believe your eyes. You think you separated from God and went from being a spiritual being to a material one, which is incorrect, but that's the way it seems. So I have a limited human life. Then I created, in my limited human universe, and world, I created a limited human body. Limited. And then on the body, I stuck a couple of limited human eyes. All of it lies to me. All of it lies. Why would you treat something as though it's real when you think about vision? I'm looking for a guide. Let's see, there's God, and then there's my eyes. My eyes that are wired backwards, sees everything upside down, has anomalies that it fills in with programs of my brain so that I don't get suspicious that I'm seeing things that are an illusion. That sounds like a good guide. You know, then why don't you go to a psychic who's like, you know, drinking and stoned out of their mind? Let's look into the crystal ball. You know, why don't go to, if you're going to go that far out, why not go to that? God or these things, they're lying to me. They're gathering bits of information and then throwing them into my brain where it summarizes the situation and says, best as we can tell, this is what's happening. And then there's God. Knowingness. Man, my life is changing because of that capital K, knowingness. And what's also cool is I'm bringing those changes to others. I've said this many times. I don't care if you read the Bible, A Course in Miracles, 12-step material, Buddhism, all the greatest teachings on this planet, 12 steps, 25 steps, 365 workbook lessons, all the different things you can study. They all are saying three things. Practice connecting more with God. Let that make a difference inside of you and bring that difference to others. That's all everything is saying. Every one of my talks, every really great book, that's what it's saying. It should bring you closer to God. It should make a change in you as a person, and then you bring that change to others. What humans do is, I'm not feeling God, I don't like me, so I'm going to go to others to get everything I need. Complete reversal. You left out the God self and went to others. That's why people are so consistently codependent. How do you cure codependence, which is the most rampant of all addictions? God first, awaken self, bring the change to others. Instead of, I need you to be what I'm not. I need you to be what I don't feel from God. Practice connecting with God. Takes time. Yeah, it took time to become dysfunctional the way you are too. But you want to do it differently or not? Yes, I have to. I'm not going to wait for my codependent version of DUI. I'm just going to say today is enough. I'm not going to wait for another failed relationship to prove that I'm codependent. I'm just going to call today enough. I don't need any more evidence. The fact that you sit around on a planet, just turn on the news, and that should convince you this is not my home. You know, and realize, do I really want to sit around with beer, wine, and reality shows? Because that's what people have gotten addicted to anymore. It's ridiculous. There's nothing positive about it. So there's a guy I met a couple times, but a guy who has sat down and tried to tell people about get back to God. Get back to God and work your programs if you're in a program. And everybody should be in some version of a program. So get back to God and work your sobriety and so forth, he says. And then he talks about relationships. And he says, you know what? You can't do this halfway relationship stuff. It'll never work. I've been married for 40 years, in love, faithful, and my partner helped me see my addictions and helped me work on my addictions. I love every day that I wake up, or on my way home, I look forward to seeing that person. That's love. Not the, addictive, codependent kind of love. He's talking about when you truly love somebody, you'll respect them. So he's talking about faithfulness and looking forward to seeing that partner. And he says that's the same way it should be at work. You'll know you found your soul's purpose when you look forward to doing it again. Instead of, I have to go to work. That's not a soul's purpose. I get to go to work. That's, I've never ever thought to myself, oh, another Sunday service. Oh, fine. Today's talk is going to be from Deuteronomy, such and such. I've never felt that way. So this person on, you see the internet or in a talk somewhere, on a talk show, or if you've ever met them, they'll say the same thing about what real love should look like, what commitment to a higher life would look like. And it can't be done without God, he would say. Who's the guy I'm talking about? His name is Alice Cooper. Yeah, it changed his life. One day he realized, I've gone too far and I can easily kill myself. And he said, I was brought up a pastor's child, and I rebelled in every possible way. And he said, when I was just about dead, I thought to myself, it doesn't have to go any further. There was my wife being faithful to me, and she was saying, I'm going to go because I'm not going to be here for your suicide. And he thought, why would I turn my back on love? It doesn't make any sense. Not just her love, but love. So he said, I came back. I came back to Christ. I came back to God. I came back to realizing that I have value. I mean, and the guy's healthier than people that never live that way. It's kind of bizarre, but turning our lives around, surrendering to God, good things happen. All righty. So soak this in. Do your best to try to let this be a difference for you. This isn't Michael lecturing. This is us hearing something right for ourselves. Any part that didn't seem right, you get to brush it off. Just ignore it. Any part that you heard, this talk or any talk, that felt right, that made sense, soak it in. Because ultimately, we're all going to realize what looks like me giving a talk and me writing a book and you talking to each other is really us mirroring to ourselves how we're doing. Every day, I heard really wise talk today. Well, I'm glad that I was part of that. But you still have to get that that's you reflecting, waking up. If you heard any decent things in a book or a talk or whatever, it is a reflection of you choosing to wake up. So thank yourself. It's not arrogant to do so. Had you not chosen to wake up, that would be really hazardous. So it's right for you to say, I can see I'm making better choices. This is great. It's good to do that. You don't even have to thank you, God, that I'm making better choices. God's never kept you from making better choices. You can thank God for the life that always has been planned for you, but give yourself thanks and continue in that direction. And be an example to others. God, self, others. Be an example to others. Not preaching to them, but just, live it. People should know that you're connected without you telling them. They should just be able to see it. God, you smile even when you're pulled over and getting a ticket. You seem at peace. The few times in my life I've ever gotten pulled over, I've never failed to shake the hand of the police officer. It always stumps them. But it's like, listen, I want to thank you. And I told you guys before, honestly. One time I'm like, thank you and, whatever. And then they give you this speech. Well, and if you would like to dispute this ticket, you can go to... I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You know how many times I've done this and not gotten caught? I deserve this. I'm not going to go dispute, even if I'm innocent. It doesn't make any difference. 10 times I did it and you weren't there. So, one time I even said, and if you park there tomorrow, you'll catch me again. I did. We were on a sacred sites trip once, and man, the guy was driving way too fast. I kept saying, you better, chill, and he just kept getting back to the accelerator and going, and I'm like, and eventually a cop caught us. We turned this corner down these hills in the northwest or the southwest over here somewhere. Cop pulled us over and said, well, you're going like 20 miles over the speed limit, you know, and the guy driving, you know, he's like, oh, sorry, you know, and then he's writing up a ticket. And then I said, now, can I ask you a question now that that's done? You know, yes, he gives the ticket to the kid. And he says, yes, what do you need? And he says, I said, we're looking for a particular town because we're on a sacred sites tour. And I said, we're looking for a particular town, and we don't know how many hours because we have a group of people, few cars, caravan. We need to know how long it'll take to get to that place. He said, oh, that's hundreds of miles, and it's about 6 hours. And I said, oh, you're kidding. We were hoping to be there in 3. And he says, no, you got a good 6 hours. I said, no problem. We'll just speed. And the cop actually belted forward laughing so hard. It was so great. You know, to say something that just caught him off guard. He expects all the anger at it, you know, and I'm instead playing with him. Let's take a few centering breaths. And as you're relaxing and gently closing your eyes, breathing, remember part of the message today. The human ego mind and the body that it manufactured and the eyes that it uses keeps trying to gather evidence that we are less than God created us to be. That's all. All we need to do is practice saying it was circumstantial evidence. Just because it looked true that I was a fragile, weak person, that I had been abused, that I had done abuses. No, it's circumstantial. Present it as such and the judge will throw it out of court, spiritual court. Instead, I am as God created me. I'm no longer going to fight to defend the evidence that my ego has built against me. For the next couple of minutes, allow your mind to speak and name first positive characteristics you think about yourself. I'm not looking for major insights from God. I'm asking our human selves, what makes you a good person at all? It could be well-kept hair, you look nice, good parent, you got straight A's in school, whatever it happens to be. Just make your own little inventory. Intelligent, high IQ, nurturing, for every item you name, just imagine there's 10 others that you're forgetting. Long lists of good traits, even if you don't think. Maybe you have poor behaviors and addictions, but you have beautiful eyes, then name beautiful eyes. Anything that's a positive. Even if it's things other people have told you. You're very bright, you're very spontaneous, you're very funny. You have good posture. Don't pretend you don't have any. Everybody's got lots of good qualities. And remember, for everyone you're naming, there's several more you're forgetting. So the point is, there's a long list of positive traits. And then try the opposite. Shortcomings, failures. Make a good list of those as well. Where have you slipped? Addictions. Misbehavings, neglects, people you've thrown under the bus, people you've rejected, people you've betrayed. But also, I've been betrayed. Because those are negatives in your life. Things done to you or done by you. And for every one you name, there's several more you're forgetting. The reason I'm saying there's several more you're forgetting is so that you can accept that you are bringing it all to the altar, not leaving any stone left unturned. Where have I not been good enough? Where have I not been loved enough? Where did I not love enough? Where wasn't I patient enough? Fired from a job, dumped in a relationship. All of these thoughts, the negatives, the positives, all stacked up. All put on in a book, each, a negative book, positive book, or on a flash drive, whatever you want to imagine. Take them and set them on an altar in your mind. If I do, can I set all this on an altar to surrender it? All of my opinions of myself, can I really surrender that? I have evidence that I've been here and done this and they've done that to me. I have evidence, but can you let it go? Set it on the altar. Even at the risk of not knowing then who you are, because that's one of the scary parts. Not just what we've done and experienced, it's the unknowns. And imagine the consciousness of the Holy Spirit descending to that altar, dissipating, breaking up all those memories, all those titles and things you came up with, and turning it into little sparkles. And lifting it from the altar up to the heavens. Drawing all of our opinions and experiences and those of others towards us. Lifting it all to the heavens. Even at the risk of not knowing who I am. Of my little self, I am nothing. And we believe that that's at best where we're going to be left. Oblivion. We have judged God and forgotten that God will now refill us. So imagine that this beautiful light of spirit now starts descending from the heavens through our head into our heart with every next several inhalations. This beautiful light. You don't know what the light's going to look like or what it's going to do. All I know is that it's filling me with God's holiness. This holiness, which comes from the word wholeness, whole, W-H, wholeness, it will give me everything. This will make me things I didn't even think I could be. I am man and woman, tall and short, creative and smart. I am all things to all people. I am being filled with the presence of God. It can do anything. This holiness of mine blesses the world. This holiness blesses my life. As a child of God, I am blessed. As a child of God, I'm happy. As a child of God, I'm joyous. As a child of God, I'm abundant. As a child of God, I give hugs, I give smiles, where and when appropriate. As a child of God, I pay people's tabs in the grocery line if that's what I've got. I can do anything. I'll be strong when people are suffering and weak. I'll be centered when they're shattered every direction. And there's moments when I still might grow weak and my heart, soul, confidence failing. I'll reach out to you, God, as well as anyone who's holding your presence. Counselors, chaplains, friends, teachers. But in the moments in my center and remembering, I'm here. My holiness can do anything. There's nothing my holiness cannot do. I am, for all intents and purposes, God's presence on earth. And I choose now to live accordingly. If I slip, it's all right. I'll bounce back. What I do know is where I'm headed, even if once in a while the car stalls. I'm still heading home by living home. And a few final centering breaths, thinking of this, feeling this, hearing it, praying it, integrating it. A few breaths. Drawing that, integrating that, then gradually stretching. When you're stretching, imagine that you're packing as you stress and tense a muscle to stretch it. You're actually packing what we just accomplished into that muscle. You're packing the truth of what we covered into those joints. You know, like it's a hug, in a sense, of each of those joints when you stretch them. Into my spine, into my neck, to my legs. That beautiful presence packed in. Thank you. Take time, man. Make sure you integrate that. And I pray it feels good and complete within itself, but also remember it connects well with the last few weeks in case you want to go back and revisit some of those topics.